Welcome to the penthouse at 432 Park Avenue. A true modern marvel, a one of one. Nothing else like this in the world.
For the past 3 years, I've had this very specific, firmly held belief in my mind that this building, 432 Park Avenue in New York City, is the worst building in the world, based on absolutely nothing.
Hello and welcome. My name is Ainsley and I like buildings. I find architecture fun. And it's this passing interest in architecture that led a TikTok to me on my For You page one day by the user @LouisaTalksBuildings, where she talked about one of the newer skyscrapers to grace Manhattan's skyline and as part of Billionaire's Row, 432 Park Avenue.
I've officially removed 432 Park Avenue from my username, but that doesn't mean I've moved past my hatred of it, so I thought I would just do a quick review of some of the things that I absolutely hate about this building. First, its appearance. It is so skinny, and I think it is so ugly. It is 15 times as tall as it is wide. For comparison, the Empire State Building is less than 4 times as tall as it is wide. Also, the entire design was based off of a trash can, which says a lot about the building. Second, its address. This building is technically not on Park Avenue. It's on 57th Street, only a couple buildings over, and there's a boutique that's technically part of the building that's on Park Avenue, which is how they get that swanky address. I think there was a Nordstrom in there at one point, but I'm not sure if it's still there. Third, numerous mechanical and engineering issues, including floods from the 83rd to 86th floors, which is honestly just impressive, and elevator malfunctions. Also something I haven't mentioned, which is really funny to me. Residents who thought they were being given completed apartments worth millions of dollars when it first opened were actually given hard hats and led onto open floors still under construction.
Listen, I'm not an architect, I don't have an engineering degree, I am just a dumb bitch with opinions, but all engineering snafus and possible problems aside, which I will get into, this building is atrocious. And how it was funded is just one crazy example of New York City real estate. So buckle up, if you have a hat, grab hold of it for dear life, because we're gonna get into this massacre of modern architecture. Now, the first and most obvious reason why I hate this building is because of how ugly it is. It's too tall, it's too skinny, and the overall cubic design kind of gives me a headache. And none of the aesthetics of this building work, in my opinion. It stands out from the rest of the skyline, but not in a good way, like not because it's a cool, good, competent building. No, it stands out because it looks like a giant skinny pencil that is jutting out of the ground. Like if someone were like mowing a lawn and they somehow missed one very tall blade of grass. Like, I'm gonna insert some photos of this building right in here so that you really understand what I mean. Like, this building just fills me with so much rage. Like, maybe if there were other buildings in the area or in the skyline that were like a similar height or a similar style, then like it wouldn't be as bad, but even then I feel like I would still hate this building. Now, this building was designed by architect Raphael Vignoli, and I truly believe that this building is one of his weakest works. He's got a lot of cool, interesting, but like still practical buildings in his work archive on his website, and I will say he clearly loves to include like geometric, cubic elements and features into his buildings, but just 432 Park Avenue, it doesn't work, it's too much. And according to Vignoli's website, 432 Park Avenue was completed in 2015 and is 1,396 feet tall, or 425.5 meters tall for all my non-American folks out there, and has a slenderness ratio of 1:15 and contains 54 residential floors with a total of 106 housing units. Now, you're probably wondering, how the fuck does this building not tip over or snap like a toothpick? So let's get into the engineering of this building. Now, like I said before, I'm not an architect or an engineer, so I will be using layman's terms to describe and explain how this building is physically possible. But if you want a more technical breakdown of like how this building works, the architecture, the engineering of it, I do highly recommend you check out Louisa Talks Buildings out. They've done a lot of videos on this building in particular and how it's constructed, and they can give you kind of a more technical breakdown. So in order for this building to be structurally sound, because it's so tall and so skinny, every 12 floors from the top, there are 2-story windbreaks in order to reduce wind load. And actually, fun fact, this building is so tall that it required approval from the Federal Aviation Administration. The structural design of this building is that of a lattice pattern of cement support beams that, according to Vignoli, was inspired by a trash can by Austrian designer Joseph Hoffmann. And so if that isn't foreshadowing to how I view this building, then I don't know what is. The symbolism, it's wonderful. Inspired by a trash can. Great. According to a New York Times article written back in February, since the construction of 432 Park Avenue, there have been multiple floods due to problems in the water line, and there was once a blown flange. And listen, I'm not a plumber. I don't know any kind of technical terms when it comes to plumbing and water lines and all that stuff. But if anything in your home or in your building is described as being blown, I feel like that's not good. Just shot in the dark there, that doesn't sound good. And actually, this cost over $500,000 in damage. And residents have reported that actually, quote, the walls creak like the galley of a ship. So, yeah. And many of these issues stem from the building's main selling point, its height. Now, all skyscrapers sway to reduce wind load and to make sure that they don't, snap and crumble during the event of an earthquake, just to kind of it just helps with the structurally sound elements of the building, right? And due to 432 Park Avenue's immense height, it sways more than the average skyscraper, and this actually has been causing issues with elevator function, and 432 has supposedly suffered many mechanical issues with their elevators. And I'm sure there are other more technical issues, and I'm certain that 432 is not alone in these issues. There are a lot of these pencil towers being built in New York and other cities right now, but considering how expensive these units are in this building and how they were advertised as these luxury apartments, these problems shouldn't be happening. And I don't think it's so crazy to believe that if you're paying over $100 million for a unit in this building, that you have a working water line and a functioning elevator. Moving on to my favorite terrible aspect of this building, its development and funding. New York real estate is crazy, just objectively, and this is just one example of how buildings like this are funded and developed, and it gets a little crazy. So I hope you're following me is what I'm trying to say, because it's gonna be a lot, so get ready. In 2006, a man named Harry Maclau purchased the Drake Hotel for $418 million, which is equal to $550 million in 2019. And he purchased additional land and air rights and even paid the French delicatessen Fauchon $4 million to shorten the terms of their lease on the ground floor of the Drake Hotel. So it was clear Maclau wanted to build, right? So Maclau acquired a $543 million mortgage from Deutsche Bank. Yeah, Deutsche Bank, as in Jeffrey Epstein's bank, as in the bank that's connected to a lot of shady financial dealings and deaths. And honestly, the insanity that is Deutsche Bank could be its own video, because wow, just wow. Anyway, in October of 2007, demolition permits were submitted for the site of the Drake Hotel. However, during the 2007 to 2008 financial crisis, Maclau defaulted on his loan from Deutsche Bank, and that loan was due in November of 2007. So in other words, he was in a big uh-oh with a large bank. Now, Maclau needed money to pay this loan and continue building the project. In 2007, Maclau was introduced to an investment firm called CMZ Ventures. The letters CMZ stood for Arthur G. Cohen, a New York City real estate guy. He's pretty notorious, well known, I guess would be a better word. Paul Manafort, yes, as in the chair of the Donald Trump presidential campaign and just overall scum of a human being, and Brad Zaxxon, who was a frequent partner of Manafort, and Fred Trump, Donald Trump's father. So, yeah. Great crowd, very classic New York City real estate guys. Now, CMZ Ventures paid Maclau $850 million, which was enough to pay off his Deutsche Bank loan and earn a little bit of profit. These guys, CMZ, wanted to build a whole lot of shit with this land, okay? They were thinking a luxury hotel, some condos, a club, a vertical mall, you name it. They wanted to just, build a bunch of stuff there, earn as much profit as possible. Now, here's where we get to really, truly the crazy shit. Dmytro Firtash is a Ukrainian oil oligarch and alleged associate of Russian organized crime. And he thought, wow, this development sounds nice. Here, Paul, take my money, and agreed to fund $112 million in equity and paid Manafort a deposit of $25 million. Now, this deposit was wired from an account that U.S. officials alleged was a front for the Russian mob boss Semyon Migolovich, who is like a notorious like Russian mob boss. Like he's quite well known. He was on the FBI like top 10 most wanted list. Now, Manafort had reportedly met Firtash while consulting for Party of Regions, the dominant political party of Ukraine at the time. Now, another French investment group had agreed to pay $500 million in equity, but in the end, CMZ's bid failed due to lack of funding. But this story between CMZ and Firtash is far from over. In 2011, the former Prime Minister of the Ukraine and pro-European Union politician Yulia Tymoshenko alleged in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York that Firtash violated the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, and she basically claimed that Firtash had used CMZ as a front for illegal funds that he had made from a natural gas company called Rosenergo, which I hope I'm saying right, that he jointly controlled with Gazprom, which is a Russian state-owned enterprise. Tymoshenko also claimed that Firtash planned to use this money that he gained to fund her political opponent, Viktor Yanukovych, who happened to be a pro-Russian politician. And, he became Prime Minister of the Ukraine in 2010. So, yeah, crazy. A different CMZ investor was a Russian oligarch and leader of Rusal, the world's second largest aluminum company, Oleg Deripaska. Now, they agreed to pay $56 million, and their fund was managed by a man named Rick Gates, a Manafort partner who pleaded guilty to conspiracy against the United States and making false statements in the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 United States elections. But this isn't the only arrest in connection with Russian interference in the 2016 election. Remember Paul Manafort? Yeah, so does Robert Mueller. In 2017, Manafort was also arrested for consulting for the pro-Russian government of Viktor Yanukovych in the Ukraine before Yanukovych's overthrow in 2014. Now, this all came to light as part of Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation into the Trump campaign and the 2016 election. And since then, additional charges of obstruction of justice and witness tampering have been placed on Manafort. And Manafort pled guilty to 2 charges of conspiracy to defraud the United States and witness tampering while agreeing to cooperate with prosecutors. And the Republican-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee concluded on August of 2020 that Manafort's ties to individuals connected to Russian intelligence while he was Trump's campaign manager, quote, represented a grave counterintelligence threat, end quote, by creating opportunities for, quote, Russian intelligence services to exert influence over and acquire confidential information on the Trump campaign, end quote. Would you like to know where Paul Manafort is now? Yeah, well, on December 23rd, 2020, U.S. President Donald Trump pardoned Manafort. Yeah. Macklowe eventually acquired the necessary funding to support to build 432 Park Avenue, and the story of the development from there is pretty typical for New York real estate. Just the weird sidetrack into Ukrainian politics and Russian interference in the 2016 election was an unexpected connection to this building that I just thought was interesting, and I think kind of makes me despise it more. Now, I may fucking hate this building with the passion of a million burning suns, but what do actual architects and critics think? Now, dismissing the fact that Vignoli himself has admitted the building has faults, the overall critical reception of 432 is actually quite mixed. Some dumbasses, like Aaron Betsky of Architecture magazine, called 432 Park Avenue, quote, a gridded tube abstracting and punctuating the more laden masses of the lesser boxes around it, end quote. And James Gardner of The Real Deal said that, quote, the sense of pure geometry, the almost polemical denial of scale, only enhances the sense of immensity, end quote. While Tim Gunn of the New York Times called it, quote, just a thin column, it needs a little cap. And he is correct. The other correct takes include that of the Los Angeles Times, who commented on how the tower represents the growing housing inequality in New York City, calling it, quote, an architectural emblem of rising inequality. Similarly, the New York Magazine called its apartments, quote, fancy prisons for billionaires, and even Vignoli, the building's architect, admits that there is a great wealth inequality within the city, saying, quote, there are only two markets, ultra-luxury and subsidized housing, end quote. And I think this is where we really truly boil down to the real reason why I hate this building so much. New York City doesn't need a billionaire's row, okay? New York City is notorious for its impossible and expensive housing market, and what they really need is more efforts to close this housing inequality. More affordable housing needs to be built, and more programs need to be put in place to manage housing and rental costs. But building these kinds of towers and units isn't what makes money. So unless there is some sort of incentive for these investors to put their money towards projects that are more affordable to the general public, those buildings and the affordable units that New York City desperately needs are just not going to be built. The penthouse at the very top floor of this building recently went on the market for $169 million. And I showed clips of this very penthouse unit in the intro to this video. But for almost $170 million, the unit is really unimpressive and underwhelming. There's like a full tour on YouTube that you can look up and watch. And I quite honestly think the only reason it's that expensive is because it's in New York and because it's a building that is such a novelty. And 432 Park Avenue and other pencil towers like it along 57th Street have no reason to exist other than for this pure profit. Maybe I'd dismiss the building's ugly design and like weird slender if it held affordable housing, if it were for the people. But it's not. It's for the rich. But hey, I mean, at least we now know where they live, so we know where to place the guillotines. Anyway, I hope you liked today's video. I know it's kind of different from the last one I did, but I'm just genuinely interested in this topic, and I fell down a very insane rabbit hole. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Please consider giving it a like and hitting me with a subscribe. I'm currently actually going through moving for college, so hopefully the next video you see from me won't be too far in the future. You know, maybe, who knows, you might get like a moving vlog or two from me. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'm gonna go fall down another rabbit hole, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Bye.
Should I do it? Do you think I should get in the tub? I feel like maybe I shouldn't, but I also feel like I should.